Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors, your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. I'm glad you're here this morning. Have a great show lined up. Get started our weather brought to us by Haney Technical Center at the corner of Baldwin Road and Highway 77. It's going to be nice today. At high is only 87. It's just been really nice weather the last couple of days, and it's going to continue. And most of the rain's getting on out of here. We're still going to have some of it straggling, but it's still, we've had a lot of rain lately, so be sure you're careful driving around on the wet roads. Always scary. Now, the low will only be 76, and the water temperature is at 81. It's cooled off a little bit too, so a little bit of change in our outdoor weather right there. The river reading, take a look at our river readings. The Apalachicola is sort of dropping a little bit. We're looking at a 3.3 this morning, and everybody looking for the weekend, and we're looking below 3 foot for the weekend, so that's going to be in good shape right there if nothing else happens. The Choctawhatchee, now it's sort of really dropping fast this morning. It's reading at a 6.1, and on the weekend it's going to be at 3 foot, but we've had some rain coming through, and I don't know if it's going to affect it much. We'll know a lot more about the weekend forecast on looking at tomorrow's weather. Okay, the tide chart brought to us by Kent Forest Lawn Funeral Home and Cemetery. Their motto is "When Carrying Counts." They're right here on 23rd Street. Again, we're in good tides. We mentioned this yesterday. We have a high tide at 7:12 this morning, and then a low tide at 6:25 this afternoon. So good morning tides are going to be high, and then in the afternoon, if you like to fish falling tide, you're going to be in great shape. All right, marine forecast south-southeast at 5 to 10. We'll take our first break and be right back with our guest. Welcome back, and welcome Captain Ken Paramore.
Good morning. Glad to be back.
Always great to have Ken here. And what's happened over the years, with Ken coming, a lot of times people know he's coming on. They'll send me questions and ask Captain Paramore about this and about that. So we're going to ask about this and that. I had a couple of questions this past week, and Ken, one of the things people want to know, these came from people in Lynn Haven. They're having trouble with coyotes, however you want to say it. So what's the story?
Some people call them Yotes.
Yotes. Okay, but now we talked about, we have one here in Jinx Avenue that we see right. Jeff and I do.
I've got one or several in my Lynn Haven neighborhood, and as we talked earlier, Stan's got a group or a few in his neighborhood, which is also in Lynn Haven, but it's on the north end up towards North Bay. Mm-hmm. And the unfortunate part, as most people know about coyotes, is that they're very difficult to either control or catch or or prevent even.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of our neighborhoods are surrounded or have a strip of woods or a place where, you know, they can live and raise. I think it's possible they even come across North Bay at times from all those leases and all those pine woods, you know, to the north there and to the west around West Bay. But, you know, there's a lot of woods around Sally Mae. There's a lot of woods down, like you said, around Jenks and the 23rd Street area where they can, and I guess it doesn't take much to for them to habitate. But they're so elusive. They're mostly nocturnal. They're very difficult to catch in a live trap. You can't obviously shoot them in residential neighborhoods without creating a bunch more problems for everybody.
Yeah.
So we don't encourage that. It's illegal to steel trap them, which probably wouldn't be effective in residential areas anyway because they don't normally, like if you're trapping raccoons or other animals, they have a trail and a habitat where they come and go where you could set a trap. But these things are just nomadic, you know, nomadic, I guess you could say. And there's very little, I mean, we do have nuisance trappers and we do have information what little bit there is. You know, you can't poison them because we've had people in the past that have tried to poison them and you end up poisoning and killing everything else, you know, around from domestic animals to a bunch of other wildlife.
So they could call a nuisance trapper if they wanted to. That's basically about it. And
you know, the nuisance trappers are under contract with FWC, and they charge to come out and trap. And some animals are easier to trap than others, and even if they come out, obviously it wouldn't be a guarantee that you know, they would trap the coyote. And who's to say if they trap one that you don't have more around there? Yeah. It's a really difficult. Yeah.
And I think these folks had lost their cat, their pet cat, to what they thought was a coyote. So I guess the best thing, just be careful letting your cat out or sort of be out there with it at night.
And as most people know, cats like to roam, and I've got an inside and outside cat myself. And when they're outside, they are vulnerable, especially in these neighborhoods that border woods where they don't have to travel too far to, you know, to find them.
Okay.
So that's a tough one.
All right, that is okay. And then one of the viewers want to know, you know, you got a lot of people scalloping and picking up shells and all that. Want to know what shells you can keep or what marine life you can keep or whatever.
And that one yesterday, when you sent me that question, was an interesting one because we don't get that very often. Number one, and number two, I learned something.
Okay.
And, I hate to say that after 34 years, I still learned something.
I thought you knew it all.
But I did. I found out that if you're shell collecting recreationally, and we call it collecting marine life by statute, you have to have a saltwater fishing license.
Okay.
So you're not exempt from the licensing by walking along the shoreline, let's just say St. Joe Bay or Beach Drive, or some of these places where they shell collect with the live animal inside, which a lot of times is the crabs and the other snails and they have a bunch of different fancy names for them, but you have to have a fishing license to collect them. And then when you collect them, you can only have 20 specimens total aggregate. It's kind of like a fish aggregate.
Okay.
But only 5 can be of the same type.
Okay.
So if you're collecting a hermit crab, let's say, that's in a shell, you can only have 5 of those. And then if you collected the hermit crabs and the snails, for lack of a better term, you could have 5 of those, so there would be 10.
Okay.
And then you'd have to have another species to get up to your 20. But it's 20 aggregate.
Okay.
But only 5 specimens of the same kind.
Well, so, I didn't know that either. So.
No,
and you know, the big thing, my grandkids love to pick up little sand dollars.
Right.
And we do it. I let them do it about 1 or 2 times a year.
I don't believe the sand. I didn't look specifically at sand dollar. But if you use that rule of thumb, you know, there's probably no sense in taking more than 5 sand dollars.
Yeah, they usually just 2 or 3. So we're okay with that. But and a lot of those, we found a lot of them in the bay.
Right.
You know,
but what you don't like to see is people who are visiting or vacationing, and they go out and they pick up a bucket full of them, and they take it back to their motel room, and they sit them out there to dry, and then of course they start to stink, and then of course they end up throwing a lot of them away, or they're so small that you can't do anything, you know, to preserve them. So it's kind of a waste if you take more than 5 at a time.
Yeah, I agree.
So But they do have to have a license, except for people who are exempt, like people under 16 years old or over 65.
Okay. Well, that's good. Two good questions right there. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Today with Captain Ken Paramore, having a good talk here. And Ken brought the new saltwater regulations, and it's good to have these. They come out twice a year.
Twice a year, January and July. And we don't always have them January 1 and July 1 due to printing and shipping and all that, but that publication is printed twice a year.
Yeah, and I noticed I just thumbed through it during the break right here and had a little story on the lionfish, which is
lionfish are an ever-present occurring problem in our waters in the Gulf and I guess the Atlantic too. And as everyone's know, we talked about a bunch. They're very prolific. They reproduce a lot. They don't have a bunch of natural enemies. Apparently, they've been introduced here, we think, years ago by the aquarium trade, and obviously they've come from another part of the world. And they are very voracious eaters, they say. Yeah. And they're pretty rough on the fry that live, in and around our reefs. So
and ironically, it leads right up to this weekend. We mentioned this before. Now it will be the lionfish dive tournament, and put on. It's going to be at Captain Anderson's out there, and they're going to have all kind of prizes. A lionfish elimination event.
Lion tamer.
I like the way they did that. And it's going to be Saturday. It'll be from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. Diver Den out there, and Captain Anderson's, and they have all kind of booths out there. They're going to fly. I'm going to be out there, folks. I'm going to be there from 12 to 4, and they've asked me to bring some of my books out there. So I'll be set up at a little table or something. If you haven't got a book yet, or you want to get one person autographed, I'll be there between 12 to 4. I want to video the weigh-in and get some pictures for the weigh-in anyway. So hope to see some of y'all out there. So.
Hopefully the weather cooperate and there'll be, a bunch of divers able to go and,
I hope so,
and harvest them. I haven't heard of anybody catching any on a rod and reel.
I haven't either, not yet.
So I'm assuming that it's hard to do. Otherwise, you would think people would catch them that way occasionally.
You start targeting that. That'd be a nice little.
But while we're on saltwater, I know snapper season is over, and we've beat snapper up pretty much since it opened and even after. But I did want to remind everybody that the Commission is holding a series of public workshops seeking public opinion regarding the management of red snapper, not only in federal but in state waters, or vice versa, not only in state but in federal waters. And these workshops are occurring throughout the state, but we have 4 coming up here. And there's one here in Panama City on July the 30th. and there's one in Destin. I believe it's the 29th, and there's one in Pensacola on the 28th, and then Carabel is, I think, the 31st.
31st, right.
You're right. And ours is at the FSU campus on the night or the evening of the 30th, and I think it's from 6 to 8:30,
Yeah.
and the public is invited. So,
Well, the thing about this, it's great to be having a hearing on it, and I know you've seen it before. I've been to hearings where sometimes people get there and they're just barking up the wrong tree and they're complaining and all. It's not just a big complaints. And red snapper is such a red hot subject.
It is, and people get
struck a
emotional.
nerve, and it's really the state people are working with us, but it's the feds that's really giving us a hard time.
It's a pretty emotional
Yeah,
topic,
yeah.
and it's also an economic topic because of the impact it does have on our economy.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, everybody encourages civility and constructive
Now,
input.
will there be some biologists there and all giving some scientific data as far as what they research and all, in addition to what?
I don't know what the presentation will be. I would imagine it'd be an overview.
Okay.
I do know there are some slideshows and some presentations that have been presented in the past that have to do with the life cycle and the populations and all of the red snapper.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there'll be some sort of preface, and but it is to get input from the public up here. So they should be pretty interesting, and I would imagine there'd be quite a few people there.
Okay.
So that's for our area, the 30th of July at FSU campus.
Okay.
While we're on saltwater, I want to remind everybody that amberjack and triggerfish will open August 1, which is just a few days from now. So at least we'll have a period of time after August the 1st that you can catch gag grouper, you can catch amberjack, and you can catch triggerfish, which has been closed now for 2 months. And from what I hear, there's quite a few amberjack around lately.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, well, it kind of alludes to our case of the month at the end, but there's been a lot of amberjack around the piers lately too, and most of them are not big enough. But amberjack and triggerfish open August 1, and while we're on the topic again of saltwater, if we've got a minute, we'll go into scallops.
Okay.
And I've talked to several of my officers that are on St. Joe Bay every day, and they said it's relatively slow. They've seen very few bag limits of scallops since it's been open, and I'm talking what you can count on one hand.
Wow.
So there's not many.
Now that right there, that's a testimony in itself. When all the officers are out there and they check on, I've seen them out there. They check when they start checking, they'll hit a lot of boats.
They go every day.
And they've only seen less than 5 bag limits, or maybe 3 bag limits, and cumulative.
And of course, what you said, you know, they're small, the ones
Yeah.
that they're catching, and as you know more than anybody, it's not fun to clean a bunch of little scallops.
No,
Sure, not for me.
No.
But anyway, it doesn't look the greatest right now, and maybe it'll get better, but they're not really having a banner year anyway on the
Yeah.
scallops. But things that do come into mind with the scallop season and the amount of boats on the water is safety again. We've got to talk about safety at least, once a month because of the importance of it between dive flags and drinking and boating and careless or safe operation of the boats when you've got so many people and so many boats on the water. As Stan alluded to a couple weeks ago, we had a young boy that wasn't scalloping, but he was off at Choctaw Beach, and it was late one afternoon snorkeling, and he got ran over by a boat. And he had life-threatening injuries, and he's still hospitalized, and he's still trying to make a recovery with a bunch of complications due to infection. And he took a direct, lower unit prop strike, across his back, and he's really in bad shape. He's only like 12 years old. So
man.
He was snorkeling, and I hate to say that a dive flag would have prevented it because no one knows, but on St. Joe Bay, these dive flags in operation are the two things that we need to have at a safe level, because if you're operating the boat safely, you'll see the dive flag, and if the people snorkeling use their dive flag and stay close to it, you won't have speed versus not seeing them
Yeah.
as a result of a collision. So you just got to operate that way when you're around a bunch of people.
Yeah.
There's no sense in flying through a crowd of people and 300 feet from the dive flag.
Yeah, and I see this, I've mentioned on the show, I see this every year down St. Joe Bay. There's always one person is going to do that. And we saw it this year on July the 3rd, or 2nd or 3rd, when one person just went right through. And I'm thinking of
No disregard, there's no regard for what's going on around them. And
it's that part of all about me mentality.
Right.
You got to get there. And
Right.
I bet they just stay up in that hole maybe 10 minutes and they come right back out, same speed.
Well, there wasn't any scallops there.
Yeah.
But really, safety, we did have a big drinking and boating enforcement detail about 2 weekends ago, and there were 2 boating under the influence cases made here just in Bay County during that effort.
Right.
And that was a nationwide effort. It was all 50 states participated in 1 weekend, and all the officers with the departments that worked the waters got out in force and worked it just like a DUI deal. And it's really important, about drinking and boating as well.
Oh, good deal. We're going to take our final break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Glad you're with us this morning. Quick look at our fish and game forecast brought to us by Mark Coward, Edgewater Beach Realty. His number is 832-6000. Our time this morning, 10:15 a.m. to 12:15. Excellent time right there. And later tonight at 10:38 to 12:38. All right, Ken.
Real quick, I know it's the wrong time of year to talk about hunting, but it's the right time of year to be talking about our hunter ed classes.
Okay.
As everybody knows, a lot of states require it before you go out and hunt. If people are going out west, elk hunting and hunting out west, which usually starts either late September or October, maybe early September. But right now, we start getting the influx of requests for the hunter ed classes. And if you wait till the last minute, obviously, or you wait till the beginning of fall, the classes are full, and really at the time to take them and get them out of the way,
Right.
particularly for young people when they're not in school and
Right.
Summer's out, is to go on our webpage and look at the schedules, or call our regional office here at Deer Point and find out when the classes are scheduled. There's online classes, and there's a field trip type class, and then there's the ones that you do attend the class for the whole time. But a reminder right now would be to start looking and thinking about hunting season. And for those who don't have their hunter education class is to get it out of the way.
And we'll keep bringing that up, mentioning it too. Okay, quickly, our case of the month.
Case of the month is Officer Matt Gore. He was working a few weeks ago on our county and city piers, and he was in a plainclothes undercover capacity, and he walked out to the pier and was watching people fish, and this one particular guy was catching small fish, and when he got up there closer, he figured out they were amberjack. And I guess the piers a few weeks ago, and maybe even still, had a lot of undersized amberjack, and I'm talking amberjack from 12 inches to 18 to 20 inches, you know. And anyway, after he watched him catch a couple, and he put them in his cooler, and went and checked the cooler, and he had 5 undersized amberjack in this cooler, and I'm talking small amberjack. Of course, you can only have one amberjack, even if it was legal.
Yeah.
And they need to be 30 inches. So, I mean, these things would fit in a little cooler, and he had 5 of them. So, he was dealing with him, and he walked past another guy, and he had 4 in his cooler.
What are they thinking?
Like I say, you know, we talk about it every month. So between 2 guys, he had 9 undersized amberjack, and it would have been 7 over the bag limit, daily bag limit of the one. So obviously those people left without their fish and with a piece of paper. Message here is learn to identify your fish. It's hard to understand that on a pier. I'm sure there were other people who would have told them, hey, those are undersized, you shouldn't keep those. And a lot of times when they do that, it's just defiance. The heck with it, I'm going to do what I want to do. And fortunately for the resources of the state of Florida, we were there and at least made believers out of 2 of them.
Well, good for y'all. That's great. And like I say, with a group of people at the end of a pier, everybody may not know the rule, but somebody will know the rule.
And usually they police themselves, or their peer pressure, no pun intended, will keep them and behave without us even being around, because they'll chastise each other for violating, the ones who are honest and upstanding.
They're good about that. Most of those guys and girls are really going to take care of the resources.
Right.
Yeah.
And, of course, the filleting of the fish on the piers, they can't do it. And they're still doing some of that. But anyway.
Well, good deal. Well, as always, Ken, we appreciate you coming out. Now, have you been able to catch any fish lately?
I haven't been since Snapper closed. Between weather and scheduling, and I just haven't had a chance to go. I'm ready to go try to pull on a grouper somewhere.
Okay.
So maybe one of these days I'll get to do that.
Okay, well, sounds good. As always, thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
All right, any questions, get a hold of me, and I'll get a hold of Ken, or call the FWC office. As always, also, we appreciate you watching Panhandle Outdoors. It's America's only daily outdoor TV show. You do something good for someone else today, and God bless.
Thanks for joining us for Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors features hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.